Zone, the Syndicate at 11:35. First on BBC One, it would seem that the beautiful game has a dark side.
So I've come to the Etihad Stadium tonight because there's a meeting of the WIFs, Women in Football. This is an organisation that's been going about 5 years. They've never courted publicity, they've never had any publicity. I've no idea what is up for debate, what's on the agenda, or really why they exist. So I think for that very reason and the fact they operate under the radar, it's worth us taking a look.
Somebody better get down there and explain offside to her.
Yeah, I know. Can you believe that? Female arrangement. That's exactly what I said. Women don't know the offside rule.
Of course they don't. The game's gone mad.
I wasn't surprised.
I wasn't surprised.
I don't think any woman in football was shocked by that.
It didn't sound like it was the end of the world.
So charming Karren Brady this morning complaining about sexism. Yeah, do me a favour, love.
And actually, it was the real derogatory tone that really annoyed me. And I think anybody who judges anybody's talent purely on gender, that's fundamentally wrong.
It was the sexism scandal that made headlines around the world.
The two Sky Sport presenters caught making sexist remarks about a female match official have apologised.
And led to the exit of two of football's highest-profile presenters.
Andy Gray said he was devastated at losing a job he loved.
I wasn't as shocked as the general public seemed to be.
People have a view that maybe the public are behind the curve. They're not.
If I'm honest, I think I've probably experienced worse over the years. Who's got the confidence to stand up when, for example, a well-known television presenter says to you in front of a room of 20 people, how many Premier League footballers have you slept with? But it can sometimes be intimidating to speak out if you're a woman in a man's world.
I mean, no one wants to be the whistleblower.
For the past 6 months, I've been speaking to some of the most powerful women in the game.
This old boy put his glasses on and looked at me, oh yes, you're that woman.
Hearing their experiences and trying to tell the real story about sexism in football.
You ain't got a dick, but you have got great big balls.
In January of last year, a number of off-air comments made by Sky Sports presenters Andy Gray and Richard Keys brought the subject of sexism to the fore.
Charlotte.
But I genuinely didn't think, oh, Sky's a bad place or those people are bad people. I just thought, that's what happens and they've got caught out.
Honestly, my first reaction was there but for the grace of God. And I defy any broadcaster to go, we have never said anything, not sexist or racist or whatever, but just something that could come back and catch us out.
Charlotte, going to tuck this in here for me, look. Charlotte.
I think the Charlotte Jackson piece particularly had an undertone of real sinister. Charlotte, I don't know her, but I know that she is a very capable and able woman. It was the fact that she felt unable to respond.
I apologised on the Sunday.
He was bleating on about the fact that, he tried to phone me to apologise to me, like I should be sitting around, waiting for his call, because I've got enough to do. And the fact that I didn't take his call, somehow my fault.
I couldn't believe that there was such a hoorah about it, because that's banter. That's what happens.
When you heard or you saw the story break about Richard Keys and Andy Gray and the various incidents that came out from Sky, what were your thoughts on that?
Well, I just it was, I just seen it. Good question, Gabby. It's a good question. I think that the thing for people like me is, in this climate we live in, it's, it's even now you panic at what you're going to say, not because he's a woman or he's a man, because you're just scared of saying the wrong thing, and I think that's how football is.
I think it was lucky for us that they were caught on camera, because I think things change now, and I think people are a lot more aware of what they're saying, and society are a lot more aware of how it is in our industry.
Neither Richard Keys or Andy Gray chose to take part in the making of this programme, but Richard Keys was not the first person to make unwelcome remarks about Karren Brady. She's been at boardroom level since 1993, when she became the first female managing director of a football club at the age of just 23.
So turning up to my first press conference with sort of shoulder pads and earrings, sort of big hair, and giving this sort of really professional presentation to the masses of press that were interested in this young woman. And when I finished, I said to the press, any questions, any questions? A little hand went up and I said, yes, sir. He said, what are your vital statistics? And I thought, oh, here we go. That's the only thing they're interested in.
She's hard, she's tough. She's the managing director of Birmingham City. Please welcome Karren Brady.
Everybody's got an anecdote about being mistaken for a wag or a tea lady or having some kind of crude innuendo. That's fine. Most people can laugh those off.
Anna Kessel hears a lot about the issues women face, not only because she writes about football for The Guardian and The Observer, but also because she's a co-founder of the Women in Football group.
We've had stories of much, much more serious abuses, physical abuse at work, sexual harassment, discrimination, really upsetting stuff.
This is the first time I've actually sort of openly spoken about it. And the gentleman in question sort of looked at me and said, you can't come in, no women allowed here. I thought he was joking, particularly because it was so timely after the Keys and Grey. We're talking 2 or 3 days later, I think. And I really thought he was joking, so I kind of laughed and kind of gave him a little bit of a, an elbow. Oh, thanks very much. And he said, no, I'm serious. No women allowed, get out. It kind of worked all right, but it gave me the confidence.
Vicky Kloss is one of 2 women in Manchester City's 6-person executive team. Last year, she was the subject of physical abuse.
You've let my male colleague in, I'm his boss. You've let him and not me. And he said, well, he can go too. And we were physically thrown out. I was physically pushed up against a wall and thrown out.
So you didn't get down?
We were, as the players and the manager came off and trooped into the dressing room, myself and my head of media relations, both of us were on the other side of the door, not in the tunnel, not being where we needed to be to do our job.
If thousands of fans at a game shout racist abuse, there is a law to protect that person that's being abused. A TV female reporter who thousands of fans were shouting slut at her, there's no legal recourse for that.
I think, oh God, there's a book in there somewhere, maybe a film. I think if you heard most of the stories that couldn't be told, I think it would shock a lot of people.
We have a flying lady today, Sian Massey. Derby captain Robbie Savage has had a go at her twice now for missing what he considers have been offside decisions.
And I thought, wow, she must be brave, because running the line in front of a hostile crowd, as a woman must be an intimidating place, and fair play to her for sticking her neck out there and doing it.
People have felt a need to highlight maybe that Sian Massey has been the assistant referee at a game and then highlighted virtually within the same breath, and she did very well.
I used to see her in her outfit, and I just had a go at the outfit. I didn't care if it was a man or a woman.
That's just you. You just have a go at what people are wearing.
Yeah, but it was just looking across, and I didn't think, well, that's Sian Massey. I'm going to curb my behaviour towards her because she's a woman. I give her a volley of abuse like I would if it was a man, because that was her job.
Like other referees' assistants who are in their first full year of officiating at the top level, Sian Massey isn't allowed to speak to the media about any of her experiences. It's noticeable that the majority of the women who've spoken openly to me have been in the game quite a while. Vicky Orvis became the first female staff football writer on a tabloid when she was appointed at The Sun in the early 90s.
I think only twice did a manager in a press conference say something designed to humiliate me or...
What was that?
Do you remember? One's really unrepeatable.
Really?
Yeah.
In front of other journalists?
Yeah.
Sexism's an interesting one because it's almost as if it's accepted in football, whereas homophobia now isn't. If somebody's sexist in football, it's kind of like, well, that's just football, they're old school, they can't help it, it's okay. Whereas if somebody's racist in football, that's no longer accepted.
And the manager said she probably likes men talking dirty to her. And we were in a really tiny, tiny sort of press room. And again, I remember or just shutting up and getting on with it.
But my point that I made was not in my column that was referred to, was not about sexism per se. It was about the way that, what's the woman doing here? What does the woman know? It was sort of that sort of dinosaur mentality that I was referring to.
That you still encountered, obviously, to write about it last year.
Yeah, even 20 years in, and still, I'm a woman.
Yes, we're women, and I guess we do stand out when we're outnumbered by men. But it shouldn't really mean we're treated any differently, should it?
I was pregnant with you, but nobody knew.
But why don't you have a fat tummy?
I had my children 6 years ago, and I was desperate to be pregnant. I had to go through IVF to get pregnant. So when I got pregnant, the thing I was most scared about was telling my new boss I was pregnant. And his reaction was, I can only say, disappointment. He looked kind of shocked and said, I thought you were going to tell me that.
I think that's what makes women bosses so much easier to work for, because actually the world doesn't stop when you have a baby.
I think people found it quite interesting that I was going to have babies and I was working in football. That seems to be what the gist of a lot of these.
It must have been tiring.
Do you think it was?
Yeah.
It was actually, Lois. It was really tiring. It was tiring working and carrying 2 babies. I'll tell you, but you went to some interesting football matches. Various things came flooding back to me about being in a Champions League ground, in a large section of the Manchester United fans started singing Get Your Tits Out. And we just thought, we'll just carry on watching the game and pretend that the glass is so thick we can't hear them. And so, even though they were the thick ones. And so we carried on watching the game and thinking that Sir Bobby, bless him, who was probably about 72 at the time, wasn't hearing this because he never said anything. So we're watching the game and eventually Sir Bobby just stands up, pulls his top off. And Ali and I almost died.
I think it was about this time, sitting here and sharing stories with other women in football that they obviously related to, that I decided that this should not just be a programme that reflected a problem. It should try and encourage a change. And suddenly, I felt a great sense of relief. When I started presenting at Sky in 1996, Delia Smith had just become a director at Norwich City, and within a year, Wendy Toms became the first female match official in the Premier League. Nowadays, women account for 1/4 of the crowd at matches and 1/3 of armchair fans. But getting to the top still isn't easy. Just ask the most powerful woman in football, Karren Espelund.
And don't hesitate to ask. I mean, UEFA is here with a lot of people.
Understand it's a lifetime opportunity for these young players.
Last year, Karren became the first woman to make it onto UEFA's executive committee. But when she first started playing the game, it wasn't even legal.
The Norwegian FA, they officially accepted women's football back in '76, and I'm born in '61. So the first 15 years of my life, football was not allowed for girls to play.
At UEFA, Karren is responsible for both the men's and women's game.
I work very hard the first years because you have to prove your competence, or at least I put the pressure on myself, but you had to also. I must admit that I still play football. So, yes, I'm a league champion in the Veterans League back in my hometown last season.
Here in Cardiff, she's checking on progress ahead of Wales hosting next year's Women's Under-19s European Championships.
I've been the one woman alone in the Exco of Norway. I've been there together with 3 others, and I've seen the difference.
For example, when I came here to West Ham, there were no senior women. And the first thing I did was bring 3 senior people into the business, and they happened to all be women. And that created, I think, a much more balanced and diverse environment, different people, different perspectives, different ideas,
What do women bring
different challenges.
to a board, do you think?
They bring a different perspective. The truth is that men and women are different, and we should celebrate those differences.
Nice seeing you. Say, hello, Karren.
This is Karren. For our own association, we've taken on many more women recently, and as far as I'm concerned, they are absolutely some of the best people that we have employed at the Football Association of Wales.
You play football? Sometimes, that's good.
How important was that to you, then,
Oh, very
to
important
drive
to me.
women to those positions?
Very important to me. You know, I take the view as if you're the first woman anything, whatever that is, it's your responsibility. You know, a door's been held open for you, and I saw it that it was my responsibility to hold that door open for all the other women.
Do you want to do Daddy's job one day, darling? Do you think you'll do a better job than Daddy?
Sexism to me in football, it's like it's the final discriminatory act that is not only exists but is deemed acceptable to exist.
Tolerated.
Yeah, you could quite happily, without any action being taken against you, say to someone, "What do you know? You're a woman."
I'm one of those people who have very thick skin. Doesn't really bother me. It gets slightly more difficult as your kids get older and they can read Twitter and horrible things that people write about you. That is a disappointment, really. My son says, "Well, you're not that fat, Mum," which is always quite sweet.
They considered me as, I don't know, the wife of the president or the mistress or the daughter or whatever. You didn't be considered as a football person yourself.
Dealing with star performers can be par for the course if you work in football. But is handling the big names purely a job for the men? Joe Tongue is in charge of Radio 5 Live's 606 Fans Phone-In show.
So how long do you reckon it'll be once you've got him, how long will you be till we get here?
We have a slight problem in that the car that was picking Robbie up from Anfield has had a car crash. Robbie wasn't in the car when it crashed, so the car was unable to pick him up. So we've got an hour and 15 minutes till we're on air. I'm not panicking yet. I'm across everything here. When he gets here, we'll just have a kind of catch-up.
Joe Tongue to me. It might sound like I'm being sarcastic, but like a font of all footballing knowledge, like from Premier League to conference. There's always something in a conversation about football with Joe that she'll tell you that you didn't know.
Cool. What number? Oh, brilliant. So is he in your car? OK, I'll leave Wigan booed off at half-time and full-time. You know West Brom have just scored. Perfect. Will you do me a favour? Will you drop him off before you park? What a nightmare.
She probably knows more about football than me. Very assertive. She knows what she wants, and you know, if you're not the same piece of paper as her, you know, she'll dismiss you. She's probably one of the best bosses I've worked for, no question. You know, she's one of the lads around the table. As you can see how I am with them all. You know, Joe's not a man or a woman to me. She's Joe.
As a woman, I don't know if I get away with more with you, but we can have an argument and it will never get aggressive.
That's a fair point.
And
yeah,
I think
I'd probably take it more off you because you are a woman, yeah.
When I did leave the Beeb for a while, one of the sort of senior management said to me off the record on the phone, I often thought if you'd have cut your hair off and dyed your hair dark, you'd have got a lot further in this place. And that's always stayed with me. And I don't know if I consciously act differently because I'm now dark, or if people do treat me differently. So I'm on this Women in Football board, but for 3 years we've kept it quiet. So it's just like a support network. So there's things that happened when I was younger that I would never accept now, and I actually don't think they talk to me like that now because I'm their boss. But at the time, I didn't really think of it. I was just thought, oh, that's just the way it is. So me and Gabby were having this conversation, and Gabby said, well, you know, I've walked into an office and someone said to me, how many Premier League footballers have you slept with? And that's not acceptable. But at the time, I would have thought, oh, it's just banter, it's fine. What did I expect it was going to be like? Get on with it.
Men is just like no other workplace.
Really?
I don't think so.
See, I think it is. I think it's the same as a building site. My friends are architects, they work with builders.
Football's
Do you think?
ruthless. The dressing room.
Really?
I'm not sure. I've never worked in a building site, so I don't
But then
know.
do you adapt yourself because now you're in a...
Is it easier working in athletics to football?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember I was chairman of the Athletics Writers Association. I mean, again, the Football Writers Association have never... You know, I remember one of the first meetings I covered being tapped on the shoulder and saying, if you want any help... And I honestly thought they were just doing this because they were going to stab me in the back. Football still, it is male-dominated. And I just think a lot of men still see it as
the last bastion.
Their space. It's the last bastion. It's what they've got left.
Okay, midfield four. Lucy, Michael. Ali on two touch.
Football is a male bastion. Let's not beat about the bush. You know, it is a male environment, and there will be male prejudices.
Stereotypes can be hard to break down.
Welcome to my world.
Jackie Bass feels well supported working for the Football League as their regional club partnerships manager. She loves the responsibility of dealing with over 40 clubs, but Jackie admits it was a lot harder in previous jobs.
It would be a difficult move, I think, to go back to club football now.
Why? What's club football like?
It was difficult for me. There was a spell about 5 years ago when I was there when there was this flurry of a lot of women being locked out from tunnels, training grounds, pitch-side access. I've been on the other side of locked doors while press briefings went on with a security guard sort of mortifyingly sort of looking at me and shaking his head and apologising because it was the club rule that no women were allowed down there. I've seen signs saying no women beyond this point. I've missed press conferences because I can't get to where I'm meant to be. It would take a lot for me to go back to that, I think.
I think as more and more women come into it, the prejudice break down and break down and break down. As I say, I'm sure no player that deals with Karren Brady at West Ham would think twice about dealing with her any other way than she would with the male chief executives.
I don't consider myself to be an expert, and I would never call the manager and say, oh, use the diamond formation 4-4-2, I think, this week. They'd all think I'd have gone mad.
There were people as well who'd make a big play when I first started of, well, she's never played the game. And I remember a player overhearing this and just laughing and pointing up to the press box and saying, well, they're all, you know, peak of fitness and athleticism.
Some managers that haven't played the game as well at the top level. So, I mean, if you want to take that argument further, some of the top managers in the game have never played at any real level of football.
But it's interesting, isn't it, that some of my male counterparts, really, they're frustrated managers. They go on the team bus and their team tracksuit and all of that, and I sit there and laugh and smile. I say to them, look, you know, this is the expectation at the start of the season, this is the budget, I'll help you get the players in. The rest is your expertise and you've got to use them.
To commentate on Match of the Day is a dream job for millions. 5 years ago, the news broke that someone new was getting a chance to join this illustrious club.
I've been to this ground many times before and I've done plenty of matches here, reporting and commentary. But it was very different because this was TV, so it wasn't a case of coming into the press room for a chat until I go out and do my preview and then do the game. I came to this press room. Oh, hello.
This press room is now an office.
Sorry, no.
This was the press room that Jackie came in on her first day.
Yes,
yes.
You're welcome to come in if you like. Do you know what? It's just a quick one. Can I just do a quick?
Okay.
Oh, no, don't worry about that. It's just, we're just telling a story of an event, that's all. That day, I was very self-conscious, and I saw a very friendly face in Nigel Adderley, who was here for 5 Live, and then we just got chatting, and he just said, what on earth is going on?
I remember when I was at Fulham, I think Jackie Oatley was the first woman presenter or commentator on a Match of the Day game, and there was a lot of talk about that at the time.
I remember listening to members of the general public ringing up with their very strong opinions about why it's the most horrendous thing since mankind, you know, evolved.
They thought that there was a shelf with a load of blonde dolly birds on and that they plucked me off it and plonked me into the commentary box. I think some people genuinely thought that.
It was unfair coverage, sort of coverage that wouldn't be given to a male commentator coming to Match of the Day for the first time, who would be given his chance then to build his way up the Match of the Day batting order. And I think that Jackie therefore had to go in and hit the ground running, and I really didn't think that was very fair, the way it all came out.
Jackie did very well. As I say, there was a lot of talk about it outside, but at the time she did well. We presented her with a shirt, I think, a Fulham shirt with a name on.
So I'd got the team news in the tunnel, and I picked up a nice T-shirt for myself, a new Fulham shirt.
Comments from the crowd, Jackie?
I do remember somebody coming over and asking for my autograph, which was, I know you get that all the time, Gab, come on.
But that's
on a match day, when you've got your clipboard.
Yeah.
Again, I was really uncomfortable with it, just because it wasn't supposed to be like.
And after all the publicity this week, the moment has finally come for a little piece of history on Match of the Day. For the first time ever, Laurie Sanchez took charge of his Fulham side at a game at Craven Cottage. Also making her debut, commentator Jackie Oatley.
One of the most important games at the Cottage for years. Only a win will do for Fulham, with 2 of their remaining 3 games.
When I first started on the radio, I was considered to be something of a commentary freak, but I think it's essential to be different. Why be bland? Why be sameish all the time? And the fact that her voice was a female voice shouldn't count against her.
The referee's Graham Poll.
And I kind of peered over and I saw him, and I'd never met him before, and he looked up and he went, "Good luck." And I just remember thinking, this is very strange.
I think what Jackie could have done was a second female coming along to commentate somewhere on the networks. It must be very, very difficult, banging your head against the door of a virtual male-excluded domain.
Laurie Sanchez makes 4 changes, injured defenders.
One of my overriding memories of being up here and commentating was from quite early on in the game, having this really strong pain in my stomach. And that came from the fact that I didn't eat for 3 days, couldn't eat anything. Just my stomach felt like it was in a knot. Just couldn't take anything in. I remember actually a friend came over with a bag of shopping, bought me some food. So I felt like I couldn't really leave the house because I just was trying to get some prep done. But now my life's completely different. I'm really lucky, I'm really happy at home and have a gorgeous little baby as well, and she becomes a priority, but I'm lucky that I can combine work and that. And maybe you do refocus slightly and know what's important in life, but
she'll certainly have that to look back on when she's older, won't she? What her mum did, you know.
She's going to be so embarrassed.
Blazing a trail. She's not. She's going to be incredibly proud, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
I love this ground.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
You chose a great ground.
Oh, it's fantastic. Originally I was supposed to be at Watford, Manchester City, and they changed it for some reason. Anyway, fast forward to Monday morning, back page had a picture of me with a microphone saying something like, "Play it again, Jackie, only needs a replay," or something like that. And had a story about how I hadn't done the commentary live, or it hadn't been very good or something, therefore I'd driven back to Television Centre, written a script and redubbed the entire 8 minutes, which was just simply not true. But that's something I found really difficult to cope with because there was a lot said and a lot written which was completely wrong. He felt a bit bad.
Jackie continues to enjoy a successful career, and she's appeared several more times on Match of the Day. But I can't help but wonder whether her journey in commentary shouldn't have been a lot smoother.
I remember a game at Birmingham and the crowd was singing Karren Brady as a whole. And my grandmother, my late grandmother, was there. She said, what are they saying? I said, they're saying Karren Brady is 24, Nan, don't worry. She went, oh, that's very nice, isn't it?
So she's from the same school of hearing as my mum.
Yeah.
Who wondered why the crowd wanted to see my teeth.
Yes.
During the making of this documentary, I've obviously spoken to a lot of women, and some of them have told us stories that we couldn't bring to camera because of the potential repercussions. One lady has told us a story so harrowing that we're protecting her identity so that you can hear those claims.
Basically, I was being hit on by someone very high up at the club. By night, he would proposition me by text. After I either ignored or declined, he'd punish me the next day by banning me from another part of the ground. One of the players called to tell me that the manager had them in one by one, asking if they'd ever slept with me. They were looking for anything they could get. I still regret dropping the case as I felt so strongly about how I'd been treated. But by now I was 2,000 pounds down and weighing about 6.5 stone from stress. I didn't have the fight in me after 6 months of hell I'd had at the club.
Thankfully, the woman you heard from there has gone on to have a successful career in football. But it was disturbing to hear her story and to think that there might be more women out there who are too afraid to speak out, too afraid to tell the truth.
When people said things to me in the past that, well, I knew at the time, as a girl in her early 20s, I knew that that wasn't right, you know, the overtly sexual comments. But I just didn't want to be the person that looked prudish or complained. And
I mean, no one wants to be the whistleblower. No one wants to be the girl that told a story that means you'll never work in football again, because I want to work in football forever.
Maybe vicious is too strong a word, but it was the most testosterone-filled environment I've worked in before or since. And there were things that happened and things that were said to me that I now regret not acting on. But I was 22 years old, and I think at that stage in your life, who's got the confidence to stand up when, for example, a well-known television presenter says to you in front of a room of 20 people, how many Premier League footballers have you slept with? Who's got the confidence to turn around and say, I'm reporting you for what is clearly
an aggressive and overtly, sexist statement. So
maybe I'm from that generation where it's, well, you just get on with it. And, the old phrase, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen.
But the rest
and it is noticeable now when I see some of the sort of girls coming through that they are very, very, well, I'm not having that.
Absolutely they should complain, because how do you ever get anything changed if you don't tell the people right at the top what's happening to you and what you expect to be done as a result of it? If there is something that's fundamentally wrong within that organisation, if your immediate boss doesn't want to know, you've got to tell the shareholders, you've got to tell the media, you've got to tell the press, you've got to get change to happen.
Don't be scared. Come on,
You're not gonna
Gunchy.
You're not going to bite me, are you?
The biggest compliment that a player could pay me would say, she's one of the lads, because I've spent 12 years trying to fit in and be accepted. So to say we don't actually see you as a woman, I'm happy then, because that means I've cracked it. I've done what I set out to do.
Definitely.
I think so. I mean, if we can sort of get you unofficially signed up and you can be our man at the training ground with your ear to the ground and knowing what's going on, and then when you go...
everyone needs to be in the know, and Jackie kind of knits that all together, throws her ideas around, because she's been in the game so long, she really knows what she's talking about.
We know that you have to do the bread and butter of the pre and the post-match, but I want it to be fun for you so that you don't get bored. So here's one that Wolves did with Matt Murray, where he basically dished the dirt on his teammates. So have a look at this.
He said, what was the score at the weekend? Yeah, we won 2-1. I scored. All right, well, what was your goal like? Yeah, I put it in the middle corner.
So things like that, that's something that you'd be great as, because you would know all the dirt on the players, how you can embarrass them. You need someone that's kind of in the thick of it. I just thought that football would want me involved. I just didn't really think about it. So to then have to overcome some of the things that I have early on, it's nice now to be like, it's just Jackie. Being normal, being bland, just Jackie, she doesn't stand out, is like music to my ears. Cool, okay then guys, I will leave you to it.
Thanks, Jackie.
But that's good.
Appreciate that, Jack. Thanks a lot.
No problem.
What stood out for me so far while making this programme is that in one form or another, physical and sexual abuse, as well as discrimination, are all still happening. And when incidents occur, many women seem afraid to speak out. And I think that's because if they do, they feel they stand alone.
WIFs came about in 2006 and I spoke to some of the women at the FA and they said, this is fantastic, yes, let's bring women together. They went back to their superiors and had a conversation. And it then came down from the very top of the FA. We're ever so sorry, but the FA Council, which is 91 men out of 92 members, would feel very uncomfortable with the idea of getting women together under the umbrella of the FA.
So did they express why this was going to be so offensive to them?
No, the word used was uncomfortable, which I took as a euphemism for threat.
Things at the FA did eventually move on, and 4 years later they hosted an event for the WIFs.
What's interesting on the FA website, one of the most interesting pages, which is entitled Organisations Structure, and you see it's entitled The Decision Makers. And this is 12 names up here, not one female name makes decisions.
And I would pretty much, I don't know all 12 of them, but I'd pretty much suggest they're all male, they're all middle class, they're all white. I mean, so, it isn't prejudice against, it's just the way the world has developed for those positions.
On the board of the FA? No, I haven't, no.
Would you?
Well, if I was asked.
Because you just seem like the standout candidate, and it does seem bizarre that the FA can't find anyone.
Well, I mean, I personally won't invest a penny of my own money in a business that doesn't have a woman on its board of directors.
Well, I certainly hope there's more opportunities for women to participate at that highest level. I mean, we ourselves in the Football Association of Wales have a council behind us, but at the moment we do not have a female representative upon that. It would be very much about time that we probably did.
I definitely want to be the first female council member to get on that council to make decisions. And I've said that openly, and have a bit of fun about it. But at the end of the day, for me, getting my licence and coaching at this level and just giving something back is so special, and I'd never take it for granted.
Slowly, I think, let's not make too many drastic changes straight away. I mean, otherwise it just won't happen.
It's taken so long to try and even be appreciated, I think. in the role that I'm in now. It's only now that people are saying, asking your opinion about things, because years ago they didn't think that you could answer the question about football, you know, so, you know, we'll be all right.
I know quite a few women working in football in England. Brilliant persons, and they are there to also be used in the governance positions. But again, the only thing UEFA in a way can do is to set a kind of role model by doing this, and also saying to the other federations, look, this is part of the governance, how it should be in the future. But it's of course up to the FA themselves to decide on this.
I think the FA can take a lead in giving women more senior roles when appropriate.
And when we were sent a form asking us our views on independent non-executive directors, I did make or put forward a whole list of women that I thought could do an excellent job. Where that list is, who's read it and what will become of it, I don't know.
Shortly after we spoke to Karren Brady, the FA announced that they were appointing Heather Rabatz as one of 2 new independent non-executive directors to add to their board.
It is significant. I mean, the FA is 150 years old next year. I'm the first woman to be appointed to the board. But I'm also, really conscious that I was a unanimous decision because of all of my other experiences in business and in media and in government that I think will help get a broader view for the board to sort of make some of those decisions going forward. I am also a woman and mixed race.
Before you were appointed, did you look from the outside and feel that the FA was lacking a female presence?
I suppose what I would say is with another hat on, I chair audit and risk for a very big infrastructure project. There are no women on that board either. Football is, sadly, not alone. And the recent reports, whether the reports on the top 100 FTSE companies, the Davis report...
The FTSE 100 companies is 14%?
Yeah,
the average?
exactly.
And the FA board is 7% now?
Now, yeah.
So to be in line with the FTSE 100, the FA board would have to have another woman?
Indeed. Not that there are targets, as we know, set or quotas set in this country.
The stereotypes are being knocked down, the male-female is being knocked down. It is a very much still male environment, and that won't change, because not every female grows up wanting to be a footballer or wanting to be a football manager. Every single male that grows up wants to do that, so you're competing against an awful lot of other people.
There are so many men that want to commentate on football, for example, that I don't think you should be shoehorning half of your new recruits as to being women who are necessarily not that keen to do it. That just doesn't make any sense.
Can you persuade the cynics who think that positive discrimination, as happens on boards in Norway, where 40% of the board has to be a woman, can you persuade them that that is actually a good thing, and how, because even feminists sometimes balk at the idea of quotas?
I'm strongly defending that, and I'm a result of that myself. When I first was asked to enter the Norwegian Exco back in '88, I was quoted into it.
I'm not a great believer that quotas are the way forward. It works against a vast majority to the benefit of a small minority.
The tokenism is something that I think many women, certainly I, would feel offended by.
Many girls playing are mostly the boys?
Well, they do have a club for football.
They do? Good. Yeah. So being then the vice president, that was the result of proven competence, not because you're quoted. But I used to say, I would never have had a chance to prove that if I wasn't quoted into the first position.
Where do you sit on quotas?
I'm not convinced.
I have a former president in the Norwegian FA. He says, Karren, this is not a big discussion. Men has been quoted for 70 years.
I don't know if you've seen on the FA website, the board is called the decision makers. And you're not currently on that page yet, which is why I was asking you the question whether or not you actually have decision-making powers, because...
Well, I'm pretty certain I do, so...
Yeah, you've told me that's good enough for me. I want you to see your name on there, though. Okay, I want you to be on there,
right,
so that when people look at it...
Well, I'll go away and look at it then. Thanks for pointing it out.
That's all right. I wonder how many more females and how we're going to get more females into those roles.
For many years, you would often hear that, oh, there's just nobody out there. Well, actually, there are, many talented women who are out there.
Kelly Simmons is one of those women that frequently got quoted to us throughout. I mean, as to an obvious choice.
And I would hope at some future that she would be part of that team that has representation on the board.
Kelly Simmons is head of the national game at the FA, responsible for investing £200 million into grassroots football.
Obviously, the recruitment was for independent, non-executive directors in this case, and obviously I'm a staff member, so I wouldn't be qualified to throw my name in the hat really for that. But
Karren Brady, when we spoke to her, had never been approached. I was amazed. Had never been approached by the FA. It just seems to have somebody who's got that much experience in football to not even.
Well,
be
I think
tapped
that to be an independent non-exec, you could not be a serving executive of a football club. So Karren couldn't have applied. I mean, part of the criteria was that as an independent non-exec, you absolutely couldn't have any affiliation with a current football club.
But there are only 2 independent non-executives on the FA board. Many of the other members are currently working in the game. So how will women like Karren Brady and Kelly Simmons ever join them?
Well, I think it's about whether it's our colleagues in the professional game and our colleagues in the national game thinking about future succession and ensuring that there's a pool of talent that can come through and be, selected, for those roles.
I have a bet going with a mate that there'll be a female Premier League manager within 10 years because, whatever's said, at the top level, we're an entertainment business.
You never know. I don't want to rule it out and say no, never, but...
that would be probably the last big barrier to break through.
Who dares to be the first lady to do that?
That would be fantastic. I don't think I'll see one in my lifetime.
Someone somewhere will appoint a female manager, and whether it's because she's the best person out there or whether because of the commercial aspects that come with it, whatever the reason will be that is the best situation for the club.
I think, women, there are a number of women in the industry who've been incredibly brave and broken through those glass ceilings.
I just think the level of women's football is not great enough where a woman could be in charge of a team, championship level, premiership level. That's just my personal opinion.
It will happen.
If it's questionable whether there'll ever be a top female manager, it's even less clear which body stands up for women with issues in the game.
The body that represents women.
No. The racism thing is obviously well documented because every start of the season you have your team photographed with let's kick racism out of football and...
Well, there isn't, is there, really, in that sense? I mean, obviously, the FA would look at the women's game, but the women's game there's a subtle difference between representing women's footballers and representing women in football.
If we collectively, the women in our organisation, can't make it better, then who's going to do that for us?
I think that's the point that we've come to with the WIFs. Previously we were happy to, just keep things amongst ourselves, not be a campaigning voice. But the turning point was really the Sian Massey incident and realising that anybody who came out and spoke on behalf of women around that time, they had to do so as individuals and therefore they had to take the full flak on their shoulders and it was very exposing for them.
It's very difficult. I mean, I when I was a lawyer, just in the really early days of harassment, it is always about who breaks the silence, and it takes massive courage to do that. So to that extent, I think there were some positive repercussions out of some very unacceptable comments that were made.
Do you think there's more the FA could do with WIFs?
I don't know, really. I think we probably, all of the football bodies maybe could help promote it more. There's some really good numbers turning up from a real diverse range of roles in the game.
There are definitely some more reformed characters than others, and so like Eddie Gray, and he talks to me, as an equal and, is totally accepting of the idea that the women work in the game. And then you get guys who are in their 30s who they just can't get their head around it,
Yeah, Having run a football club in my previous life and, being in certain situations, yes, there is sexism around. And I was in a meeting where we got women in football together and we could all fit in one room.
The last meeting we went to filled a much, much bigger room than this.
Good.
Do you think perhaps there might be a more structured approach to
that? There may well be, and I think it would be something that I would, want to talk about further with some of my colleagues here in, over the forthcoming months. As I said, I've sort of been here for about 6 weeks now, I think. So it's sort of early days, and that absolutely has to be something that those chairmen, and they are all chairmen, have to think about.
That's not necessarily just about the 11 players on the pitch.
It really comes down to culture, and it's one of the hardest things you can change in any organisation, and it only comes from change right at the top, where people really fundamentally, honestly and passionately believe that things need to be changed, not just how do we look like.
If I had said that to a bloke and I was just offering him a job, he'd go, yeah, great, brilliant, and inside he'd be thinking, oh, I can't do that. But he wouldn't say it. So sometimes I think there's an honesty often about women, or a, realism, and we could probably communicate a little bit more, and there's a little bit less bravado, perhaps, a little bit less testosterone, as Gabby referred to.
So that was my first experience of a WIFS meeting. And I have to say, they've asked me before, and I couldn't make it because I genuinely had work commitments, but I also was a bit reticent because I didn't know if I wanted to share some of the experiences that I'd had. And, it felt like I was doing a positive thing sharing those things, because some of the women there and girls had also experienced similar things, and it's probably good to know that you're not alone. It wasn't as scary as experience as I thought it was going to be, actually, and they're a lovely bunch of ladies, and I'd love to actually come and maybe speak to them again sometime and hear their thoughts. So I think I'll do that.
Everything else has been taken away from, we get better grades than them and we take their jobs away. And I've actually got that somebody sent me a card. First we get better grades than them, and then we take their jobs.
And now we've taken their football.
And now we've taken their football.
It is a man's game. However, in terms of what goes in and around the support of those players on that pitch, can that be more diverse and inclusive? Yes, it can. We moved a long way from those few lone black players in terms of the diversity of race we see on the pitch, which is, I think, absolutely brilliant. It's about, can we get some diversity around what happens in football, which particularly includes and represents women.
Where we are now, there will never be fewer women in football than what we have now. There's only going to get more of us. So I think that doesn't sit well with a lot of people.
When Sepp Blatter says things like women's shorts should be tighter and it would increase the popularity of the sport, this attitude comes from the top down, doesn't it? How helpful is that?
I have had a chance to discuss that with him and also try to communicate and say this is not what it's about.
And what kind of response did you get?
He has to answer that. Goalkeepers in shorts.
Have you ever thought, I'm going to be the one, I'm going to push myself forwards in a way that you've seen your male colleagues, I'm going to be that chief football writer, I'm going to be the sports editor?
When I first started, yes, I think I thought that was possible if I wanted it. Now I've actually beginning to think, will it happen in my lifetime?
I think it's really important that the role of women in football is looked at seriously in the same way that weight is given to homophobia and racism, and that the women we spoke to who've experienced some terrible treatment never have to go through that again, and the people that come behind them don't have to experience that. And I think that will be better for men and women in the game, and I think it will be better ultimately for the game itself, the game that we love, the beautiful game.
I always liken working at a club to the end scene of The Wizard of Oz, when you pull back the curtain and you think, oh, is that it? Just the guy with the microphone, and it kind of ruins the illusion.
You know, if you're a female and you want to get involved in that environment, you are knocking your head against a very, very tough wall. And you would wonder, to a certain extent, why do you want to do that? What are you looking to prove?
That I heard of once in a love.
What changed in you then?
How do you mean?
Why did you think it was possible? And now you've got to a situation where, what happened to the young Vicky who thought it was possible?
the ball, the ball. Push, the ball.
I think you always assume it's going to be better for the next generation and it's going to be easier for the next generation. So therefore, I hope it's not even a consideration to Lois that there's nothing that she feels she can't do, and there's nothing that she feels is a male-dominated industry. And whether that is a more peculiar situation for her because she's got me as a mum and therefore she sees me doing something that other people might perceive as being a man's job, or, you know, again asking the question, what's it like to work in a man's world, which I'm still asked 18 years or so into this industry.
How can you not take someone seriously who's been in football for 13 years? So for me, it's, again, not had a problem there, but it's taken a long time.
Hopefully, her and her generation will find it to be a more open and comfortable route to wherever they want to go, and they don't feel that they're being knocked back because of their sex.
Beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I?
That was so good! Well done!
Special. I picked you.
It was like she was running away from something or someone down the street.
I'm investigating a group of men. I think they groom girls.
They made me do it. They locked me in a room and I couldn't get out.
Who are they?
What are you going to do to me?
Silent Witness continues Sunday at 9 on BBC One and BBC One HD.
And now on BBC One, a check on tonight's winning numbers and jackpots from the National Lottery. The Thunderball numbers are 4, 5, 10, 21, 34 and the Thunderball is 5. Early indications show there are 187,000 winning tickets on this game tonight. And in the main lotto draw, the winning numbers are 9, 23, 26, 33, 40, 44 and the bonus number is 31. No jackpot winning tickets this time, therefore the rollover jackpot for the next draw will be an estimated £6.6 million.
What possible reason could I have for wanting to jeopardise your relationship now?
There's a reason this happened, a reason you...
Nothing happened.
Are you in love with her?
Rafi, wait!
What do you want?
It's decision time at Holby City, Tuesday at 8 on BBC One and BBC One HD.